Well, some shoppers say they're a bit confused by the pricing methods used by one of our grocery store chains.
Have you heard of Aldi's?
Of course.
They actually have several stores in and around the valley, if you're not familiar, and boy, are the complaints.
What if someone told you the biggest tax hike in American history isn't coming from Congress, but from tariffs? And here's the kicker. It's being sold as a tax cut. Sounds confusing, right? Well, buckle up, because Peter Navarro just dropped a number that's got economists and families sounding the alarm.
Look, there is an attempt by this president to rewrite the rules of engagement for trade around the world for the last, frankly, century. That's what's happening here. And we, the United States, have been spectacular beneficiaries of globalism. Hasn't worked perfectly. There have been lots of parts of our own economy that have been hollowed out. So I don't want to suggest that it hasn't that it doesn't work. But this plan effectively to tariff everybody, and it's not a selective tariff. That's an important part. It's not that they're saying China, we got problems over here, or India, we got problems over here. It's everybody. Whether we have what's called a trade surplus, which means that effectively we do more business, we export more stuff to them than they send to us, we still are going to tariff you.
Peter Navarro, one of Trump's closest economic advisors, just claimed something jaw-dropping. According to him, Trump's new tariff plan could rake in a whopping $6 trillion over the next decade. That's right, trillion, with a T. He calls it the largest tax hike in U.S. history. But don't expect that label to show up on any political ads, because here's the twist. Navarro insists it's not a tax at all. Instead, he calls it a tax cut. Confused? You're not alone. The idea is that by taxing imports, we protect American industries and jobs, which in turn supposedly boosts the economy. But that claim isn't sitting well with most economists, who are quick to point out the reality. Tariffs usually lead to higher prices for American consumers. So while it may look like revenue for the government on paper, it could mean smaller paychecks and bigger bills for everyday families. Now, here's where the scale of the plan hits. Navarro's projected $6 trillion is 3 times larger than the inflation-adjusted tax hike that funded World War II. That's not just a historical footnote, it's a serious comparison. Back in 1942, Americans paid more in taxes to support the war effort, but at least they knew where their money was going. With tariffs, it's a little murkier. While the goal is supposedly to strengthen national security and independence, critics argue this move would actually strain household budgets across the board. Unlike World War II, there's no global war, just a trade strategy that might end up burning consumers more than benefiting them. But Navarro isn't backing down. He's doubling down on the idea that tariffs aren't taxes on Americans at all. Instead, he claims the bill will be paid by foreign exporters, companies in China, Canada, Mexico, you name it. Sounds ideal, right? Except that's not how tariffs work in the real world. Experts have made it clear. Import taxes get passed on to the buyer, which is almost always the American consumer or business. So when that 25% tariff kicks in, you're likely the one covering it at the checkout line, not some foreign billionaire in Beijing. It's like being told the dinner's on someone else, until the check lands on your plate. Just when you think Navarro's pitch can't get more controversial, economists jump in with a big red flag. And here's where economic reality hits hard.
Welcome back. Car seats, high chairs, and strollers. New parents can expect to pay about $20,000 according to Babysitter Center in the first year of their kid's life. And
despite Navarro's confident tone, most economists strongly disagree with his sunny spin. They say the truth is far simpler and more painful. Tariffs are taxes, plain and simple. And while politicians might claim they're targeting foreign producers, the cost usually lands right on the shoulders of American consumers and businesses. Think about it. If a company has to pay more to import parts or products, they're not just going to eat the loss. They pass that cost right along to you. Whether it's your phone, your car, or your groceries, you're footing the bill.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day, waiting for a long time. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. We're going to make it wealthy, good and wealthy. For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. American steelworkers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen, we have a lot of them here with us today. They really suffered gravely. They watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. We had an American dream that you don't hear so much about. You did 4 years ago, and you are now, but you don't too often, and for many years and decades even, you didn't hear too much about. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple, can't get any simpler than that.
And Trump's just getting started. He's planning to roll out even more tariffs, dubbing the big announcement Liberation Day. Catchy name, but the reality might feel more like a financial ambush for families already stretched thin. The plan includes tariffs on all goods from China, Mexico, and Canada, which are some of America's biggest trade partners. That's not a small policy shift. It's a seismic economic gamble. And then there's this bombshell: a 25% tariff on all imported cars. Yep, all of them. So if you've got your eye on that shiny new Toyota or BMW, get ready to dig deeper into your wallet. So how exactly does Navarro expect to rake in this $6 trillion? He's got a breakdown. According to him, $600 billion per year will come from general tariffs on goods. Add another $100 billion annually from the auto tariffs. Multiply that over a decade, and voila, $6 trillion in revenue. Sounds neat on paper, right? But it raises a big question.
President Trump has widened the global trade war he started since retaking the White House. He's announced a 25% tariff on all cars imported into the United States from the 2nd of April.
Because here's where things start to unravel. Experts are scratching their heads at how Navarro even came up with these numbers. For starters, he's assuming Americans will keep buying just as many imported goods, even after prices jump from the tariffs. That's a big leap, because when costs rise, people usually cut back. And that's not even the most ambitious part. To hit $700 billion a year, the US would need to slap a 25% tariff on nearly every imported product. And that's based on $3.3 trillion in annual imports. That's almost everything that comes into the country. So either Navarro's predicting a miracle, or he's selling a fantasy. Here's where things get a bit more complicated. Because of these tariffs, they're not all created equal. Trump's new tariff strategy isn't a one-size-fits-all. Canadian energy imports? Only 10% tariffs. That's pretty mild. But Chinese goods? Most of them will get hit with 20% tariffs. And it's not like everything gets taxed. Only goods from countries that Navarro claims have unfair trade practices. But what does unfair actually mean? That part's still pretty murky. So depending on where stuff comes from and how political winds shift, you could see prices spike on one product while others stay untouched. It's kind of like playing economic roulette. Even if they go full throttle on tariffs, there's still one big problem: implementation. Tariff plans often run into delays, exemptions, and renegotiations. That's just how international trade works. It's messy. There are lobbyists, loopholes, and last-minute deals. All of that could undercut the revenue Navarro is banking on. And remember, his numbers assume consumers and businesses won't change their behavior at all. But that's not how real life works. If prices shoot up, people look for cheaper alternatives, delay purchases, or just stop buying altogether. So betting on no behavioral changes is like assuming people will happily pay more for no reason. Spoiler, they won't. Now let's rewind for a second. The last time America tried a major tax hike was way back in 1942, during World War II. That tax hike pulled in $10 billion a year, and if you adjust for inflation, that's around $200 billion today. And get this, it was equal to 5% of GDP back then. In contrast, Navarro's projected $600 billion in tariff revenue would only be about 2% of today's GDP. So yeah, it's a bold move, but we've seen bigger in terms of economic weight. Still, back then, the money came from broader taxes, not risky tariffs that hit specific industries or spark trade wars. To put Navarro's plan into even sharper focus, let's compare it to something more recent, the Affordable Care Act. Over 10 years, the ACA was projected to raise about $486 billion through taxes. That's less than 1 year of what Navarro claims his tariffs will bring in. Sounds wild, right? But here's the kicker. Some of those ACA taxes were later repealed, which reduced the actual revenue. And that's the risk with these big economic plans. They look great on paper, but when the political and economic reality kicks in, things change fast. And not everyone is cheering for this plan. Critics, both economists and lawmakers, are calling it what it is: a massive tax on Americans. Senator Mark Warner didn't hold back. He called it a $700 billion tax that's going to hit consumers hard by raising the cost of everyday products. And he says Navarro's math? Misleading. One of Navarro's biggest claims is that $100 billion a year will come from auto tariffs alone. He's also floating additional tariffs on auto parts and trying to sweeten the deal with tax credits for buyers of American cars. But what exactly qualifies as American? That's still up in the air. Here's the problem. No car made in the US is 100% American. Supply chains are global. And shifting production back home? That's a multi-year process. In the meantime, we could lose jobs before we gain any. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping your world. See you in the next one.